Hey everybody, it's Mike, aka Mahadeva. So today I want to talk to you about the two kinds of romantic relationships that we are, quote, destined to have in this lifetime. So I really love this picture here because if you look at it, you see these two people who, as they stare at each other, are annihilating each other. And this is a representation of both what can happen on a positive note and what can happen on a negative note. So I've got there in the notes love versus annihilation. The challenge is that we may have difficulty telling the difference between the two because in the beginning, especially, they can feel identically. It feels like you are, on the one hand, merging with another person, and it is the most blissful experience in the beginning. But as you know, relationships can turn out to be extremely destructive. In fact, they can destroy your life. And so, we've got this new fad. It's a new fad, by the way, talking about twin flames. When I was a kid, there was only one word, which was a soulmate. But now we've got this whole new idea that there can be soulmates versus twin flames, and what is a twin flame, and all that other stuff. And I've shared with some of you my thoughts about that. I'm not going to get into that in this video. What I am going to do is explain to you the two different kinds of relationships so that you can tell how, if you're in it, if this is one of those relationships that is going to end up being destructive where you annihilate each other, or if this is going to be one of those karmic relationships where you connect with somebody and you fuse together and your lives become bigger and better and stronger. So there's going to be two videos for this. The first video, the A video, is going to be here on the free channel. And then the B video, I'm going to give you instructions on how to do that. In this video, I'm just going to explain the concept behind the two. And in the B video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do to ensure that the relationship that you attract is the one that creates the positive, true merging love relationship that creates the positive outcome for what you want, to help you live your greatest joy and achieve your greatest success, prosperity, and happiness, because that's what relationships are here to do. All right? So let's get started. Okay, so let's go back to this beautiful picture because it really does describe the feeling that you have when you first meet that person. You first meet that person and there's this feeling of absolute utter knowledge and connection, this feeling that you are mirroring each other. And maybe it'll start off with talking all night and sharing all of your feelings and your thoughts and this incredible intimacy that you just can't avoid this feeling that, oh my God, I've known you my whole life. I've known you for thousands of years. Now I'm here to tell you I've experienced both. And I can tell you that both exist. And in the beginning, it is very similar with both. So I don't want to throw water on the idea of, twin flames or soulmates. I don't want to do that. Because when you have that experience, it is the most amazing, life enhancing, everything comes into view when you find one of those relationships. I did. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. But I've since had the other kind, where it feels like you've met, another twin flame or soulmate, and it turns out to be something altogether different. So how can you tell the difference between the two? How can you, more importantly, how can you align with yourself to such a degree that you don't attract that second kind of destructive relationship that annihilates you? Because both relationships are trying to do the same thing, which is why you enjoy it in the beginning, which is why it feels like this is karmic. Because what relationships are designed to do is to burn away the limited narcissistic aspect of your identity so that you can tap into your eternal identity. And that's ideally what relationships are there to do. And your partner is there as a mirror. You know, I used to perform marriage ceremonies years ago. And when I did, I would emphasize that you're not getting married because you're lonely and you want a friend and you want, you know, all the conveniences. If you're getting married for that reason, it's not going to work. The reason to get married is because you are making a vow that you are going to be there with your partner while your partner faces their true self. And that is a challenging experience. The whole point of a relationship is to increase and speed up that process. But the partner's job is to be a neutral, loving mirror, to hold your hand and to say, I'm going to be there with you while you get to know your true self. That's really what a relationship is all about. The rest of it is just window dressing that gets us into it. So you are here on this planet, from a spiritual perspective, you are here on this planet because you have two selves. And there's karma and dharma. Karma is the result of your actions, positive or negative, right? You walk into, there's a red no walking sign and you walk into the street and get hit by a car. That's the karma of walking into the street when there's no, walk sign. When you eat right and go to the gym, you feel healthy. That's the karma of eating right and going to the gym. So karma is neither good nor bad. It's just the result of your actions. That's it. And that's all life is, by the way. People who have challenges in life, whether they're emotional or mental, these are people who have difficulty interfacing with that concept. They take actions without realizing the effects of those actions. And they go, why? Life is so cruel to me. No, it's just doing its thing. You're the one that's not really having a clear understanding of the actions that you're taking. Okay? So that's karma. Then there's dharma. Dharma is, karma is unavoidable. You take an action, there's going to be a karmic repercussion, positive or negative. Dharma is avoidable. You can choose not to follow your true destiny. You can choose not to follow your true path. And that is the lesson. That's it. There's no getting it right, achieving enlightenment, being the perfect person. That's not what's happening here. You are here to simply learn the difference between the two. So on the one hand, the dharma, your orlog, your destiny, your true self, that is directly connected to your eternal authentic essence, which we would call the soul. So from a spiritual perspective, the soul exists independently, in multiple lifetimes. It doesn't matter if you come in here, you're putting on this avatar. My avatar is Michael Denny, aka Mahadeva. That's my avatar. Or at this stage of my avatar, I'm bald with a beard and blah, blah. That's my avatar. It's not my eternal essence. And so I have a choice. Do I want to identify solely with my outer persona, my avatar, or do I want to identify with my soul? So the whole point of spiritual discipline is to get to your authentic essence. This is what ends up happening with relationships. So ideally, if you have healthy parents who are empowered within themselves and they're capable of loving unconditionally, then what happens from the ages of 0 to 4 is that they reflect back to you who you are, because they don't have any agenda other than to see, who is this little being? Let's find out what are the particulars about who this little being is, and let's let him or her show us. and they reflect back to you from unconditional love, meaning they have no agenda. They don't need you to be anything or do anything. They just really want to see who you are and reflect that back. Now, of course, that's the perfect ideal, and there's really no parent that does that perfectly. Some do it much better than others. And for those that don't do it very well, these are the children that end up with emotional, psychological problems. And the reason for that is because if you're with parents who do not reflect back to you your essence without any agenda, then what ends up happening is that you are being energetically, if not outright verbally, being programmed to create a false persona that will help you to survive. When you're a little kid from 0 to 4, your survival, your physical survival depends upon getting the love and approval of your parents. If you don't get that, you don't survive. So we have evolved as little beings. I mean, even I think last I heard that there's even evidence that at 5 days old, a child, an infant, is learning how to manipulate the parent in order to get the parent to love them so that they can survive. Which means part of that, they're learning what to do and what to be in order to survive. So if you have a parent who is not coming from their authentic self, meaning they're coming from their fragmented, inaccurate, false avatar and thinking that's who they are, then they're going to project their agenda onto you. So, things like don't ever be sad, don't ever be angry, I'll give you something to cry about, up to really complicated things like, people who have problems with making money. Something happened when you were a kid, your parents told you that money was evil or that you didn't deserve money or you were a piece of crap. Or, in the case of my parents, if I wanted, as a kid and as a young adult, if I wanted my parents' approval, I couldn't be too successful, because if I was too successful, it would intimidate my dad, who himself was actually quite successful, which is strange, but that's what he learned from his dad. And so I learned to be mediocre, because every time I started to achieve something, I'd get this negative backlash from them. So that fed my false, temporary avatar into trying to change itself to be just mediocre so that I could get love and approval. You have your own, imprinting, positive and or negative. So what does this have to do with relationships? This avatar identity, if you identify with that created, temporary, false identity, then you are going to attract a relationship that is going to kickstart all of those issues up. Now, when you meet somebody, regardless of whether you are operating from your eternal identity or from your temporary identity, when you meet somebody, if they interface with whichever identity you are operating from, you are going to have this experience. This experience of, oh my God, you are the one, you inflame me and empower me, and I've known you for thousands of lifetimes. It's a delusion. In the case of having the temporary identity associated with that, it is totally a delusion. It feels good. It feels amazing. It feels like I found my destiny. I found my other half. But all that's really happening is that you are both stimulating each other's false identity. Now, if you have been trained poorly, programmed poorly, in ways, so that your parents didn't teach you how to connect to your authentic self, then what's going to happen is that you are finding somebody to help yourself self-destruct, which is why I love this picture. And it's really interesting when you hear people talk about twin flame. On the one hand, it's the one thing they want more than anything. But if you hear about, go and watch the majority of twin flame videos, blogs, You'll hear people, no matter what they say about it, they'll talk about how painful it is. And the majority of them talk about their twin flame that's they've either never found, or they've met their twin flame and their twin flame is now married to somebody else. And so they spend their whole time talking about my twin flame this and twin flame that. And I'm going to connect with them on the fifth, plane of existence. And then, they'll come back to me, and it's misery. It's all a way of running away from your authentic self. That's not your fault. You were trained to do that. You're just simply following your evolutionary instinct, which is, I have to operate from this identity in order to get love and to survive. It has to happen when you're an infant, but by the time you become an adult, you need to get rid of that and get connected to your authentic essence. Now, what happens in the opposite? What happens when you are connecting to your eternal essence, your soul, and that becomes your identity? So then you have to do the work of finding out, wow, this idea I have of myself and what I deserve and who I am and all that, that's some false identity that I was either programmed and or created in order to survive, and that's not who I am. Let's discard that. This is what therapy is all about. This is the whole point of meditation. This is the whole point of spiritual practice, to get to your identity. Now, the more trauma and challenges that you've had, ages 0 to 4, the more challenging and painful it's going to be to do that real discipline to find out your true self. But for some people it's easy because they've been given loving parents who give them the tools to figure it out. For some of us, we didn't have that, and so it's a more challenging experience. But the universe requires the same from both of us. If you want to be healthy, happy, and prosperous in life, the universe demands that you act in certain ways and, get certain things back. So when you find that person, when you're operating from your ideal self, you're going to have that same kind of experience. In fact, you might not even be able to tell the difference. Now, there is a way to tell the difference, because there are some serious red flags that pop up when you are in a dysfunctional relationship. But when it's right, there's a lot of things that are similar. So, for instance, in the one that I had, I knew on the second date. I knew she was the one. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. In fact, I found myself, with my head in her lap, weeping, saying, I found you. I finally found you. And listening to myself going, what the hell? Where is that coming from? Now, that's an identical scenario to a dysfunctional relationship where the same kind of thing happens. You meet somebody, and either right then, from the moment you see them, or after the first or second date, you just absolutely know there's this unbelievably strong attraction, this feeling of I've known you forever, that we really get each other, that you're the only one. And those are some serious red flags. Some serious red flags are when one of you says, I feel like you're the only person who really sees me. That's a serious red flag. You got to watch out for that. Feeling like I finally found the ultimate one. That, like I said, that can go either way. When that happens, you got to stop and go, let's see where this is going. Don't get too emotionally attached to that feeling. But when it is the right kind of relationship, what ends up happening is that your life gets better. You end up becoming more connected to your true self. You end up seeing yourself in your partner's eyes at your highest, what you can be at your highest level. Now, it has to continue that way. The dysfunctional kind, especially the kind when we're talking about if you get involved with somebody, for instance, who has borderline personality disorder, what's going to happen is they're going to reflect to you their projection of who you are, which you can mistake for being your highest self. So they'll project onto you, you're the best person. You're the only one that can really communicate with me. They will build you up, and you'll have the same feeling. So this is why it can be so confusing, because the true, spiritual connection versus the dysfunctional one, they operate on the same kinds of principles. When you've been with somebody who is truly your soulmate, that karmic connection, that somebody that you have a karmic connection with to help you move, or a dharmic connection is a better way to put it. The person that you have a dharmic or soul connection with, that person is not going to cheat on you, betray you, devalue you. You know, what you hear when people talk about twin flames as opposed to soulmates, again, I think that's ridiculous, but people who talk about twin flames versus soulmates, they're talking about, well, your twin flame will bring out the worst in you. And that's your, and somehow that's a good thing, and then they'll talk about that versus a soulmate, and they'll somehow downplay a soulmate. Oh, a soulmate won't bring out all those horrible things in you, but a twin flame will, because they're your opposite, and you're, all that other garbage. It's just dysfunction. Sorry. It's just dysfunction. But again, the beginning is going to feel exactly the same. So, this is the first video to help you understand the difference. In the second video, the B video, I'm going to be telling you exactly what you can do to prepare yourself so you can take control. Instead of waiting around for that perfect relationship, you can take control within yourself to align yourself to such a degree that you will attract that second kind of soulmate, the one that actually helps you see your highest essence, and just that connection gives you the motivation to take action towards your highest happiness, your greatest success, your greatest prosperity. What is the difference between somebody who projects onto you from inside of them and somebody who actually sees you for who you are and sees your highest vibration? And this is something that I experienced. What I experienced was, with my soulmate, is that she reflected back to me as if it were right here, right now, my highest vibration. And because I loved her so much, I was motivated to rise to the level of how she saw me already. And so I was learning from her who I truly was. And then I rose and accepted that. And what ended up happening is I discarded along the way all of the minimizing things that I had learned in order to survive as a kid, which I'm calling, your temporary identity. I learned to discard and move beyond that to my inner essence, my highest identity. And that's what a real relationship is. As opposed to the other kind where you're dealing with each other's projections. And, the feeling of, oh my God, I've known you my whole life. It's purely a projection. It's not real. But it feels exactly the same in the beginning. That feeling of you are losing yourself in the other person. In the positive one, you're losing your temporary, limited avatar in order to connect to your higher true essence. In the second one, you're actually taking on more limitations onto your temporary ego avatar, and it eventually drags you down and brings misery and pain. Those are the two differences. So in that second video, we're going to talk about that. So how do you get to that second video? If you are on the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, you go to thunderwizard.com and you go to the relationships aspect, the masculine and feminine, finding the merging of masculine and feminine. I forget exactly the words. Go and subscribe there and look for this same video title, and I'll have the second video there for you there. If you are on the Surviving Relationship Breakup channel, then just click the join button and subscribe there. And then you'll have access to the B video there. So either one, If you're on thunderwizard.com, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe at the merging of masculine and feminine. And if you're on the relationship breakup channel, just simply click the join button. And of course, whichever free channel you're watching, hit subscribe and hit the bell button. All right, that's it. I'll see you in the B video of this same title.